Hey, what's up, bomb ass moms? I'm Tierney,
I'm Ashley.
and this is the Bomb Ass Moms podcast. What's up, girls?
What's up? We are yet again at another episode. And listeners out there, this is going to be a good one. Before we even get started with talking about the topic today, follow us on IG, Facebook. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. We are on all platforms. So let's get into it. This is going to be a good topic. Today, we actually have one of my best friends slash line sisters. If you don't know what a line sister is, it's one of my sorority sisters who is going to be discussing and educating how she recognized that her son was autistic. She's going to share insight and very informative information. So this is going to be a good topic of discussion. But before we lead into the good, juicy details, Kelli, thank you for actually coming on our podcast to share with our listeners, to tell your story, to just be open and vulnerable, because sometimes this can be hard for women out there, for mothers out there. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. Glad to be here. And as I'm learning and educating and informing myself, I definitely don't mind sharing what I'm learning with others.
It is definitely appreciated. We're going to ask you a few questions. With that being said, can you let the listeners out there know just a little bit about you, how many children you have, things like that?
Sure. As Ashley mentioned, I am a sorority sister of hers and a good friend. I am from Memphis, Tennessee area. Been in the finance and accounting world since graduation. I am a mother of two beautiful babies, Mason, who is 4, and Madison, who is 1. I am a wife, I'm a career woman, and I am a mom, and I'm happy to be here.
Yes, yes, Hunty, you are a bum ass mom. That's what that sounds like. Ain't that right, Tierney?
Yes, you're wearing many hats over there. Okay, Kelly, well, let's just get into it. How did you recognize some of the symptoms that your son was displaying? Can you just start with giving us a little story?
Sure. So Mason has always been, or when he was born and in his early years, Mason was always very ahead of schedule. He was always hitting his milestones rather early. He walked early. He just always fascinated me as far as what he was able to retain and regurgitate. But we realized that when he approached maybe 2.5, him being at home with us 24/7, because Mason never went right into daycare. He was pretty much raised at home. My mother or my mother-in-law would keep him at our home. So he was only around pretty much adults his first maybe 3 years of life. So we finally realized it was probably best for his social interaction to go ahead and start daycare. We put him in daycare when he was 3. That was what, August 2021, I think. And while we knew Mason could say things, recite things, he never really could have dialogue with us, like conversation. For example, Mason could be having breakfast and he can tell you, as far as Mason, what is this? What is this? He could tell you everything that was on his plate. But if you just asked him, Mason, what did you have for breakfast this morning? He couldn't tell you because it wasn't in the form of a what do they call it? The 5 W's: what, why, who, where, when.
Yeah.
So that dialogue piece was missing. And so we thought, well, we'll put him in daycare. Normally, children really catch up on any milestones they're behind on when they see other children doing it. And so, in my mind, I wanted to give him 6 months in daycare just to get up to speed. But I think 3 months into daycare, my husband was like, we need to do something else. This is not working. I feel like he should be doing more than he is. And I was in my mind trying to be patient. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is 3 years of his life he was at home. So we can't expect him to just turn into a complete 180 in 3 months. But either way, also, I was very much pregnant with my youngest now, Madison. And so trying to take on scheduling different appointments and evaluations for Mason while in the third trimester in the last few, months of pregnancy. I was like, I'm not trying to do that. So I was like, let me at least have my baby. And then that by that time it'll be about 6 months. And then we can like look into evaluations and whatnot, and just for peace of mind, see what it is that get a second opinion around what we think may be going on with Mason. Because his pediatrician kept assuring us, no, I don't think he's autistic. He doesn't give me reason to think anything is wrong with him in that way. Just because she was like, you have late walkers, you have late talkers. Some people literally are just a little behind. And I think because we've seen Mason hit milestones so early up until this point, this is one thing where he may not hit it early or hit it when he needs to. So let's just keep an eye on it. But for peace of mind, me and my husband took Mason to a psychologist to do an evaluation, a neuro evaluation, back in February 2022. And that's when we were given the diagnosis of level 1, level 2 on the autism spectrum. And it's pretty much high functioning, very similar to Asperger's syndrome, what they used to call it. It's a medical term. They don't really use the term Asperger's anymore, but it's basically Mason is freakishly smart as far as what he can remember, recite, learn. He's a very fast learner, but he has awkward social behaviors. And so Mason stems, which is like flapping the hands and stomping in place. Just like it's this way of regulating his feelings or his emotions. It's his way of regulate. It's kind of like they say everyone has a form or variation of stemming. Like if you twirl your hair or hit your fingernails on a table while you're thinking, or you always pat your leg when you're sitting still. Those are all different forms of stemming. But Mason would do it as far as with the flapping of the hands. Him not being able to talk with us and they wanted to say he had receptive and expressive language delay. But after the evaluation with the psychologist, she was like, I beg to differ. I don't think receptive is the problem because he knows what you're saying. He knows what you're asking of him. He's very receiving and he understands. It's just he can't express himself. And so we think expressive language delay and high functioning autism was what the formal diagnosis was for Mason. And so that's pretty much how we got to that point. It was just him not being able to converse back and forth with us. That dialogue piece was missing. And he always wanted to kind of be by himself. Didn't really want to interact with other kids very much. I'm perfectly fine playing by myself, whether it's with an iPad or a toy. I don't need to be around other people to enjoy myself. And so those little social things gave us a little concern, had us do a little bit more investigating.
Kelli, I do have a couple of questions for you just listening to you. One, thank you for sharing that. Two, what were your thoughts and what were Malcolm's thoughts when you did take him in and they gave you a formal diagnosis? Was it a sense of relief and you could better plan?
I think it was a mixture of emotions and thoughts. One, we were very glad that we were able to catch it when he was young. There are some parents that literally will just let their child go under the radar and, oh, they'll be fine. Just keep on going until they're 8, 9, and 10 years old. Versus the earlier you can catch this and get in front of it, the better chances Mason is set up for success in the long run. And so, from that perspective, we were relieved that we weren't crazy. Like something really was off, and we wanted to make sure for peace of mind that we knew what it was. And so, from that perspective, like I said, good. We felt good. Now, there were other emotions and whatnot because then, as soon as you get a diagnosis or as soon as you figure out what it is, what do? We go to Google. Oh, let me go and Google what all this is and examples and variations and what this can look like. And so you start seeing like the less severe cases where, oh, this person's 30 years old now and they're perfectly fine. And then you see these severe examples where they don't ever get to truly live on their own. There won't be an independent lifestyle. They're always going to have assistance or help in some form or fashion. And so that gives you worry. That gives you concern. That gives you What if my child ends up like that? What if my child is this? So then you had those emotions. And then I guess from my husband's perspective, you know, any dad with their son, they have that father son relationship that they envision when they have a boy. These things that they think they're going to be able to do and accomplish and experience. And then with this diagnosis, just not being able to have a conversation with your son, not being able to see the interest maybe that he would want you to have. Like Malcolm is really big on basketball, and so just not being able to truly have a true basketball game or fun time with Mason, those kind of things I think really took a toll on him. Just accepting that this may not look like what you envisioned at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also very optimistic because I feel like this is so early. Mason is only 4. We can't just write him off as this is what his future is going to be like just because of a diagnosis. So right now, I'm just really ambitious in the sense of advocating for him, educating myself on him and what he needs and what I can do to make sure that he's set up for success.
Kelly, what treatments did they recommend for him?
With his high functioning, so that's like very, he could easily come off the spectrum. If he just has the right things in place, he could easily come back off of it. It's not a end all be all. They recommended ABA therapy, which I think is applied behavior analysis. It's a form of therapy where they track and report a lot of data. They look at how many times Mason may yell instead of saying a word. They look at how many times he flaps in stimming to see basically what behavior or what happened right before that to cause that behavior. So they try to analyze the data to figure out how they can change whatever happened right before to change the behavior or the reaction to what was going on. So, like a lot of times, Mason, they like, oh, he stims or yells when he's excited, when something he likes or he's something really fun. They can help with like routines as far as potty training, and because we still like, as far as him being fully potty trained, we're still not there. But he does understand the motions, and he'll do number 2 on the potty. He just won't do number 1, but which is normally the other way around with a lot of kids. But Mason is different in that regard. But either way, ABA therapy is one thing they highly suggest. They think it's very progressive and can easily knock him back off the spectrum and make it where he's just fine again from a behavior standpoint. For his expressive language delay, speech therapy. He's doing speech therapy now, and he's been doing it, I think, since what, March or April? No, November of 2021. So, yeah, even before he got the diagnosis for autism, we already kind of had him in speech therapy while he was in daycare just to kind of see if we could speed things up. So, speech therapy was something. And then occupational therapy, OT. Another characteristic of Mason's that we didn't realize was autistic until we got the diagnosis. He walks on his toes. He's a toe walker. And they say that's something that a lot of autistic children do. And so OT can help with getting him to walk flat on his feet, as well as him not being aware of his surroundings. He doesn't quite catch on like we would, where, for example, if someone is swinging on a swing, you don't go behind them while they're swinging because they'll hit you. Mason doesn't catch that. And so he's not really aware of his surroundings to where he'll just walk. He'll walk behind you while you're swinging. He doesn't think about, oh, somebody could hit me. And so a lot of times it just comes off like he's clumsy, but in reality, he's just not aware. And so OT also helps with that too. So those were the 3 main things: ABA, speech, and OT were the big things they recommended for Mason on the front end.
So I'm glad that once you all got him seen, they had some good resources to recommend. How, just for those that are listening out there, can you explain Was it difficult to get into those different or use those different resources? Was it difficult to actually get appointments? I know it's probably different from where you live place to place, but approximately how long did it kind of take you to get him into like those therapies like speech therapy, occupational therapy, and ABA?
Yeah. So ABA therapy, one, we had to learn exactly where to get that. Because before I live in Memphis now, but before that, I was in Houston. I lived in Houston, Texas from 2013 to 2022. So when we got this diagnosis, we were in Houston, Texas. And with Houston being so big, you would think, oh, there's an array of places. This should be no problem. I think we might have went to 6 or 7 different ABA therapy facilities before we actually found one that we both had a good vibe about. We felt like they know what they're doing here. We feel comfortable leaving our child here. And two, they had availability. Now there were a lot of places that we really, really liked, but the wait list was ridiculous. Oh, we won't have anything. This was what, February? They were saying we won't have any openings until September or next year, or we don't know when we'll have openings. And so that kind of made us feel like kind of defeated, like we really want to get him in front of somebody sooner rather than later. But then we finally ended up going to a place in Texas Medical Center in Houston. It's called Behavioral Innovations. They had a facility in the Texas Medical Center that we went and toured. We loved, we enjoyed, and they were able to get him in right then and there. And so we ended up going with that place from an ABA therapy perspective. And Mason did aggressive ABA therapy from May 1st to September 30th because we moved to Memphis October 1st. And so, literally, up until we moved, he was in ABA therapy 5 days a week, 9 to 5. We just foregoed actual school, like pre K and stuff, because one, Mason, like I said, he's very smart. Mason knew everything they were learning in pre K already. So, it wasn't like he was missing out on a lesson. He just wanted to focus on his social behaviors. For speech therapy, I literally just went to my insurance website because I wanted to make sure whoever I found for his services was in network, because this definitely can get costly when it comes to the different things that he needs. And there was one place that could get him in as soon as possible, but it was in League City, which is like from my house in Houston was probably a good 30 minutes there and 30 minutes home every day. And he would go to speech therapy 2 times a week for 30 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes. And then I would literally just sit in the waiting room while he did his lesson or did his therapy and take him back home. But eventually he started that. I'm trying to think, when did he start with speech therapy? Was it November? And then by the time we got the diagnosis, in February, we found out that there was a speech therapist that was coming to his daycare to do speech therapy with some of the kids in pre K. And so I ended up getting her contact information from the director of the daycare because she normally doesn't do children Mason's age. She normally just focused on pre K at the time, and Mason was only 3. And so luckily, God was really putting it all in place because she was able to slide Mason into her curriculum or her time while she was at daycare. So rather than me having to drive him 30 minutes 2 times a week, now he just goes to speech therapy while he's at daycare twice a week. And so that was a blessing. But it was just identifying the need and realizing that she was there and just asking the questions, because had I not asked or reached out, we probably still would have been driving him 30 minutes everywhere to get his speech therapy. And now that we're in Memphis, the flip flop of this, there's like way less options for ABA therapy and whatnot here in Memphis. And the ones that I have identified, just based on Google or Yelp or my insurance, they all have year-plus wait lists right now. So when we moved here in October, I put Mason on so many wait lists, just hoping that come summer, we'll be able to just give him ABA therapy while he's not in school. Mason now is in pre-K.
Kelli, you said it was a year wait?
Yes, a year plus.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh.
Yes. For that and speech therapy as well. We never got into any facilities here in Memphis
Oh
when
my
we
God.
moved here in October last year. But now that Mason is at pre-K at Lakeland Elementary School here, and the great thing about Lakeland Elementary is their pre-K program. They have a special program for kids with learning disabilities, and so Mason is able to go to pre-K with other kids like him, and they have a speech therapist on site, they have an occupational therapist on site, and this is all built into his curriculum. And so I literally drop him off for school every day, and I get the comfort of knowing he's getting both speech and OT while he's at school.
That's a blessing. Like God works in mysterious ways. Like that is
Amen.
definitely a blessing, Kelly. Like you go from being, I don't want to say denied, but it's delayed like a year something plus, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
in this school that has the services that you actually are waiting for. Like that's a blessing.
Right. So yeah, when they told me finally he could start school and everything was good to go, I had to like fight back tears because it was like, man, if these people only knew what all I've been trying to do to get this boy lined up where we feel good about what he's getting, man, this is truly like I love the school. I love his teachers. I like his therapists. I've met everyone one on one. I've talked to everyone. I've asked them all the questions I want to ask. Malcolm has asked them all the questions he wants to ask. We feel so good dropping Mason off every morning and picking him up from Lakeland Elementary.
Okay, Kelly, since you all were very proactive about like getting him treatment since the diagnosis, have you found that he's had any improvements?
Definitely. He definitely can ask or request more from us as far as his vocabulary. Mason talks a lot more than he used to. I don't know if it's like maybe certain conversational questions he has learned the answer to them. And so a lot of times he's able to respond probably off memory, but he's able to definitely tell us more of what it is he wants. Whether it be, can I have, and he loves technology. So his favorite thing to ask for is, can I have some iPad? Can I have some phone?
That's so
To be able
Kelly.
to
That's
to
funny.
watch his stuff. But he's definitely able to tell, I'm sleepy, I'm hungry. Can I have some rice? Can I have some oatmeal? Can I have whatever? So he's definitely prone to asking those kind of questions with us. We're hoping that, speech is an uphill battle. So we'll continue to monitor it and progress and check in on it. As I said before, like when we first found out Mason and potty training was just not mixing. But now, like I said, he's in a place where he can definitely come and tell you, hey, mommy, potty, like I gotta go. And so to take him. But we're still working on making sure that he can do number one just as well as he can do number two, and come tell us. As far as progression and other things, I'm trying to think. I think those are the main things. I mean, Mason is just more vocal overall. He's still going to stem. I don't think stemming will go away. It's just how he regulates himself. He's more so trying to focus on, or at school, they're focusing on getting him to sit still for long periods of time. Just because if we want to eventually put him in traditional kindergarten, it's going to be more kids in the classroom and less teachers. Because right now he has a teacher and two teachers' aides, and then his speech and OT therapists come in at any point in the classroom too. So there's up to 5 adults in the room with probably about 13 or 14 kids. And so they're trying to get him those behaviors where, okay, we're sitting in circle time. Can you sit still for the whole time in circle? Because he just needs structure. But I think those things will come with time as well, just because he hasn't really been in a classroom setting until now in pre-K, since his diagnosis. So time will tell. I feel really good though.
Kelly, I know you touched on this a little bit with how the diagnosis affected your husband, but how did it really affect you? And what are some things that you and your husband has done to kind of like decompress a little bit?
As far as how it has affected me, I think I'm one of the type of people that I always see the cup half full. I don't see it half empty. And so while there are moments of like frustration or moments of doubt or maybe it's sometimes sadness depending on what's going on, just because sometimes it hurts my feelings or hurts my heart that my son can't truly express himself the way we're used to expressing ourselves, or just being able to tell me what it is he wants sometimes, or tell me what it is he needs. So those kind of things, there are moments where I probably will get down on myself or down on a situation, but I'm just such an optimistic person, and I'm very faithful as far as my faith with God. And I know who I belong to. I know I'm a child of God, and I know that Mason is a child of God as well. And so to me, I just always try to keep in mind, Kelly, he's only 4. Kelly, he is very young. We're not going to write him off. We're not going to assume that this is his reality forever. We're not going to assume that the future is going to always look like this. We're going to continue to be optimistic. We're going to continue to be prayerful, and we're going to continue to advocate for him and make sure that whatever he needs, he has access to it. And so that's just been my mindset. I feel like I'm really like encouraging and motivating my husband too, just when he has his moments, because I feel like his are more common than mine. But that's just that's always been me. I think even Ashley knows my sorority named me Aura on my line, because despite negativity around me, I always see the positive. And so this didn't change anything as far as how I approach it. I'm always going to try to see the positive and see the silver lining in every situation. And I mean, Mason is a great kid, and I try to always make him feel like he's great and you're special, and you're normal. Your normal may not look like my normal, but I'm all for it, and I'm here for you whenever you need me. So yeah, I just try to be positive about it. I really don't try to focus on the negative. And then, oh, you
That's
said things that we've done. We read. I've definitely taken 2023 as an opportunity to really like zone in more and read about things around autism and just characteristics, different holistic approaches or medical approaches around this, just to see. I don't want someone else to tell me what's best for my son. I'm glad to hear it, but I want to also be educated enough to know also how to advocate for him in the best way. And so me and my husband both have taken a more active interest in getting more educated on autism. And I found at my firm, at my job, we have I guess you call it an affinity group, a employee resource group. It's called People with Disabilities and Allies, and they have a neurodiverse aspect to that, where been able to find other moms that work at the firm that have children like mine that have autism or have a different learning disability, have ADHD or whatever the case may be. And just being able to have that support, somebody that works where you work, that does what you do and understands the career you've chosen, and still be able to show up and advocate for their child. They give me resources that they're aware of, things that have worked for them in the past, and connect me with other people. So I think having those support groups in that network, someone that can understand where you've been and what you're dealing with, is very, very much so a benefit as well.
Kelly, that is true that you always have a positive outlook on life, and that's just amazing. Like even before children, we just knew that about you, right? So I think that's just who you are. And that's good that you kind of put it out there. Mason's normal or Maddie's normal. It's not going to look the same, but you are normal. Like you don't make them feel any differently. And it's okay to be down on some days. I get it. We're human. But I just wanted to let you know that I'm proud of you and that you are a bum ass mom, Kelly. Like you're doing it. And so keep it up and keep being an encouragement and just a voice, or you sharing your experience for those out there listening and may not know what to do.
Kelly, would you have any tidbits for moms out there, like anything that they can do better to deal with the diagnosis with their children that may have autism, or any resources that you want to share?
I'd say the earlier you can catch it, the better. If you feel like something is not right, something's not sitting well, or you feel like your child is not hitting a milestone. A lot of times us as parents, we see it, we understand it, we have that seal, that feeling, that gut reaction. When you feel uneasy about it, get peace of mind. I know a lot of pediatricians will try to rule it out just because they think it's oh, they're just a late talker, they're a late walker. It's just, we can't expect everything to happen right when we, or comparison is the thief of joy. I know that's a big one. We compare our children to other children, but deep down, sometimes it literally is just, if you have a feeling, act on it. There's nothing wrong with getting an evaluation, getting a second opinion. And just by doing that, just go through your insurance to find who's in your network that you can have your child seen by to get peace of mind. Um, I'm trying to think what else. There's not any like exact resource I would want to share right off the bat. Because I think mine is just going to be focused around autism versus other diagnoses that could come from evaluations and whatnot. But for parents that are maybe similar to me, definitely continue if your faith, be prayerful, find other moms or other dads, other parents that are similar in your situation. A support group is always a best thing for me. Just being able to vent or bounce things off people that truly get it. To me, it reminds me of just like when sometimes when you're married, do you really go and get advice from single friends or do you go to other married friends? Sometimes it's just more beneficial. But all in all, just stay optimistic, stay faithful, stay prayerful. Always see the good in the situation, and the earlier you can get it and get in front of it, the better chances your child is set up for success in the long run.
Kelly, you did just say something about support systems. In your family, do you have any support from anyone else? I know you said that you have your mother-in-law and your mom. How do they care for Mason?
Just like any other grandkid, they don't. I mean, Mason is very, like I said, he's way more vocal now. So if Mason's hungry, Mason will tell you he's hungry. If Mason wants something, he'll tell you what he wants. And they just kind of look at it the same way. The first 3 years of his life, he was pretty much with one or the other, my mother or my mother-in-law, while me and my husband worked. So he's very comfortable around them. He's definitely himself, and they pretty much understand what it is. And if there's anything that I learned, I definitely try to educate my mom. My mother-in-law is actually from the education system. She used to be a teacher before deciding to just full on take care of my children. But before that, she used to work with children in special education and whatnot. And so she had a few autistic children. And so she was able to better understand Mason from the beginning and also help us understand him sometimes too. And so really it was just educating my mom on, well, this is why Mason does this, or this is what Mason's really trying to tell you when he does this. So just those things. But they love him nonetheless. That's their grandbaby.
They're great. When you did find this out, was it overwhelming for you to kind of share it with your friends? I know you probably shared it with your family and tried to educate your family, but was it overwhelming, like, for you to share it with like us? And I say us because I'm your friend, but like your other friends.
No, I've always been, I feel like I've never been shied away from telling my like friends to talk on the regular going on with me or going on with my children because they're my prayer warriors. I want them to pray for me and pray for what's going on, but you can't pray for what you don't know. Closed mouths don't get fed. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely try to be transparent and share things, especially if I have other friends with children. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to see if the things that I'm feeling uncomfortable about, if they saw those signs, symptoms in other kids or their own children as well, would they advise me to do something different or just give me a different perspective? So I've always been very like transparent about what's going on with my kids. I did in the beginning, and sometimes still now, I find myself trying to, I'm not embarrassed in public when Mason like does his yelling or flapping or stimming, but I always get to a point to where I try to say something. Like I think we were in the airport one time waiting on baggage claim, waiting on luggage, And you could be sitting there for some time. And so Mason gets fidgety and Mason starts doing his yells and whatnot, just his way of like stemming and regulating his emotions and flapping. And I look over to a stranger because I see that they see that Mason's doing it, and I'm like, oh, he's autistic. I'm sorry. And they're like, you don't have to apologize. I wouldn't have even known had you not told me. And that was like, every time it made me feel like, Kelly, you really be overworked and overthinking things when people just are not even paying you any attention. They're not even looking at Mason the way you are. And so I had to like kind of check myself on that too. Like, just because he's doing what he's doing, it doesn't make him any different. So there's no need to feel uncomfortable in public. Let him be him. And so that's another thing I've had to work on. But yeah, I don't feel like I just try to be transparent.
When you were just saying that, so do you find yourself hyper aware of like him doing certain things in public? Because seriously, if I would have heard a child just scream out, I would feel like, oh, they're just a kid. They need to
Hmm.
move around, they need to do stuff, they're not going to sit down.
Yeah, and that's what the world perceives Mason to be. So I'm the one that's always like you. I am hyper aware. I used to be really bad about it when I first found out what it was. I was very like cognizant and always trying to be mindful. And I think for the longest, I would leave my children at home. I would always, if I needed to go somewhere, I would leave them at home with my husband, or leave them at home with my mom or my mother in law, and go run errands or go do this or go meet up for this. And then finally it was like, Kelly, you're doing them a disservice by not taking them out into the world. They have to get out in the world between Mason and Madison. They won't know how to act in restaurants if you don't take them. So eventually I just had to get over my fear of people and their perception of Mason and just go with the flow. And I think that's been the best thing, just coming to terms with it. Because now I think whenever, like, I guess when my sisters are around, like my sister that's out of town comes in for the holidays, or family that's not around them on the regular, like me, they wonder, like, how do you tune it out? How do you, it doesn't bother you that he makes noise or this, and this? And I'm like, nope, I'm used to it at this point. That's Mason. So the way I can just kind of calmly be around him and continue to do things and I guess exist, it's just become from I've made it where I'm not as hyper aware as I used to be when I'm out in public or just in general around people that aren't familiar with Mason.
Yeah, this whole thing is a process and you're learning, every day. So yeah, people are gonna have questions and wonder. And I just thank you for being open to their questions because people will ask and it will take patience and you respond. And it's not necessarily like when they asked you, just listening to you, do you not hear or do you tune it out? I don't necessarily think that it's a tune out. It's just like you said, you've become aware of certain things and it's the normal for you, right? It's not,
Mm,
it's probably, second nature. So
right.
yeah. I know you mentioned Maddie on here. So how is their interaction? I know Maddie is a little bit younger, but still like you had a new baby to come home. Were you like Mason gentle? Like how was that?
Yes. So Mason, because he's so used to just keeping to himself, when his little sister arrived, he wasn't that like ambitious, I want to be the best big brother ever kind of guy. Mason was just like, oh, who is this stealing my thunder, essentially. Um, so he looked at it from an attention thing. Y'all ain't giving me attention anymore. Why is that? And so that's been interesting to see him slowly but surely warm up and interact more with Madison. Like now she's a year old and she gonna demand attention whether you want to give it to her or not. So she is all about her big brother. Madison loves her some Mason, and she makes him love her back. In a
Oh, how
sense,
cute.
we do have to be mindful because Madison is what, a year old now, and she hasn't been in daycare. She's only been at home, very similar to Mason when he first was born. But we definitely are taking the stance of putting her in daycare earlier than we did Mason. She'll
Mm-hmm.
probably start next month, to be honest. But right now, we noticed the things that she's picking up, the behaviors, the thing, it's all from Mason. And so you would easily start to think, well, is Madison going to be autistic too? But it's
Yeah.
just because that's all she sees. She's not
Mm-hmm.
around other children and whatnot. So the the things that Mason does, the behaviors he does, she starts to do them too. And you're like, okay, Maddie, we're going to have to go and get you around some other kids just to be sure that this is just you picking up stuff from what you're seeing. She's definitely interesting to say the least. Personality is something else, and she makes Mason, like I said, makes Mason love her. It ain't up for debate. You gonna love me because I'm gonna be in your face no matter what. So he's
Yeah.
more open to it now, but when she first walked in the door, he was not for it.
So that's
That's
good.
fun.
So his interaction with her, do you think that that will grow into like him being more interactive with other children? Have you seen that yet?
Yeah, I think Mason just has to be more in a classroom setting. So he's just got into the classroom setting where he's actually sitting amongst other kids in a way where he's supposed to be more social and whatnot. At ABA therapy, he was around other children, but there were so many different ages of children and different levels of diagnosis and whatnot. He knew everyone's names. I think he might have had maybe one or two people that were in his age group. But I think that pre-K is where he's truly like, okay, I'm around like 10 plus other kids that are 4 years old or my age and, right there with me. And they say at school, we did a parent teacher conference what was it, last week before last? And they say they can tell he's warming up. He's actually like laughing with other kids, wanting to be around or sit next to certain kids, joking, showing his personality a little more at school. So they see that he is like doing some things that are social. And then with Madison, they're always either fighting with each other or playing with something together because she just won't let him be by himself anyway. So Madison definitely does not give him an option. She's going to make him love her and be around her regardless. I think it's just with time he will get there. It's just him having to be in those situations and be in that environment more.
I definitely agree. Just with you explaining that, I guess he have time to be alone with himself. But like you said, Maddie forces that interaction, so therefore it allows Mason to kind of interact. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're
Yep.
right. Placing him in those situations will only help Mason become better. And again, I'm happy that you caught it early, and you and Malcolm realized early on, and you didn't just ignore it and think that, oh, that's just cute, because it's not cute when you just ignore something when a child needs help. They can't necessarily tell you, but you had that intuition again as a parent or as parents, and y'all sought out help. So it's never a bad thing. I just want the listeners to know out there, like Kelli said, if something's not right or it doesn't sit right, reach out. Don't just sit in silence, because again, there are so many resources and support groups out there.
We're going to wrap this up. We want to say thank you, Kelli, so much for coming on and educating us and just giving us some information about autism and the spectrum and how you helped your child, little Mason. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, Kelli, thank you. For the listeners out there, you can go read Kelli's blog. She has a blog. You can let the listeners know your blog. I know you blogged about it, but you blog about a lot of good information. So, again, we thank you. We appreciate you. Let the listeners know your blog information. And until next
Thank y'all for having me. Greatly appreciate it. My blog is kelsandcurls.com. KELZNCURLZ. So Kels and Curls with a Z.com. Talk about Mason, how we got to be where we are, and his ABA journey. And I'm probably due for an update now as far as him being in pre-K. But it's definitely where I share all my life. So definitely check it out if you have a chance.
until next time.